A homeless mother saw a teenage boy collapse on the street. While everyone froze, she rushed in and saved his life with CPR. What she didn't know, he was the only son of the city's most feared mafia boss. And the debt he swore to repay would change everything. The morning sun barely touched Maple Street when Mira noticed the boy stumbling. She'd been parked outside the cafe for 20 minutes, watching through her van's cracked windshield as business owners unlocked their doors. Her daughter Lily sat in the back, quietly coloring in a notebook they'd found at a dollar store. Mira was calculating, always calculating. The cafe needed dishwashers. The florist across the street had a help wanted sign last week. Maybe today someone would say yes. Then the boy appeared. He couldn't have been more than 16, wearing an expensive leather jacket that caught the light wrong, too perfect for this neighborhood. He walked like he owned the sidewalk, but something was off. His steps were uneven. His hand kept reaching for his throat. Mira sat up straighter. "Mom," Lily's voice came from behind. "What's wrong?" "Stay here, baby." The boy's knees buckled. He grabbed a lamppost, missed, and collapsed onto the concrete like a puppet with cut strings. His head cracked against the pavement with a sound that made Myra's stomach turn. People stopped. A woman screamed. A man with a briefcase took 3 steps forward, then froze. Everyone just stood there, forming a circle around the fallen teenager like he was a modern art installation they didn't understand. Myra's door was open before she realized she'd moved. Her feet hit the pavement and she was running. The cafe owner shouted something, maybe a warning, maybe just noise. She dropped to her knees beside the boy, glass from someone's dropped coffee cup biting through her worn jeans. No pulse at the wrist. She pressed 2 fingers against his neck. Nothing. "Call 911, she screamed at the frozen crowd. "Now!" His lips were turning blue. Mira tilted his head back, checked his airway, clear, and locked her fingers together over his chest. She'd been a nursing assistant once, before everything fell apart. Before the eviction, before the shelters, before living in a van became normal. Her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. 30 compressions. Fast and hard. Her arms burned. 2 rescue breaths. His chest rose, good. 30 more compressions. She counted out loud, her voice steady, even though her hands were shaking. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on, kid. Not today." Someone beside her was crying. She didn't look up. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. The world narrowed to just this. The rhythm, the count, the desperate hope that she wasn't too late. 15 seconds that felt like 15 hours. Then he gasped. The boy's body convulsed. Air rushed into his lungs with a horrible, beautiful wheeze. His eyes flew open, dark brown, terrified, alive. Mira rolled him onto his side as he coughed, her hand steady on his shoulder. "You're okay," she said, though her own voice was shaking now. "Just breathe. You're okay." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The boy tried to speak, but only managed to croak. His hand found hers and squeezed with surprising strength. The crowd had grown larger. Mira looked up and saw dozens of faces staring at her, some impressed, some simply shocked. The cafe owner was on his phone, speaking rapidly. A woman in a business suit had her hand over her mouth. The ambulance arrived first. 2 paramedics pushed through the crowd, and Mira gratefully moved aside. They worked quickly. Asking her questions she answered on autopilot. How long was he down? Did he have a pulse? What did you do? You saved his life, the older paramedic said, meeting her eyes. Another minute, and we'd be having a different conversation. Mira nodded, suddenly exhausted. She stood on shaking legs and turned to head back to her van. Lily's face was pressed against the window, her eyes huge. Then she heard them. The engines came from both ends of the street simultaneously, deep, powerful rumbles that made car alarms wail. 3 black SUVs appeared from the north. 2 more from the south. They didn't slow down. They didn't hesitate. They simply took over Maple Street like an occupying force. The vehicle stopped in a coordinated formation that blocked every exit. Doors opened. Men emerged, 8, 10, 12 of them, all wearing dark suits and expressions that made Myra's survival instinct scream. These weren't police. These weren't paramedics. The crowd scattered. The business suit woman dropped her coffee and ran. The cafe owner disappeared inside his shop, locking the door behind him. Within seconds, the street that had been full of onlookers was empty except for Mira, the paramedics, and the men in suits. One of them approached the ambulance. He was older, with silver hair and a scar that ran from his ear to his jawline. He spoke to the paramedics in a low voice. They nodded rapidly, their faces pale. Then the silver-haired man looked at Mira. "You," he said. It wasn't a question. Myra's mouth went dry. "I should get back to my daughter." "You performed CPR on the boy." "Yes, and now I'm leaving." The man stepped closer. Not threatening, not exactly, but impossible to ignore. "That boy is Alexei D'Amato. Does that name mean anything to you?"
It did.
Everyone in the city knew that name, even if they pretended not to.
D'Amato.
The family that owned half the docks. The name whispered in courtrooms and back alleys. The reason certain neighborhoods never called the police. Mira felt ice form in her chest. "I didn't know who he was," she said carefully. "I just saw someone who needed help." The silver-haired man studied her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You should have walked away," he said quietly. Everything would have been simpler. Before Mira could respond, another SUV arrived, this one moving differently, with an authority that made even the armed men straighten their postures. It stopped directly in front of the ambulance. The man who emerged made the air feel heavier. He was tall, maybe 50, with dark hair graying at the temples and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. His suit probably cost more than Mira had earned in the past year. He moved with absolute certainty, like gravity worked differently for him than for everyone else. The paramedics stepped back immediately. The silver-haired man bowed his head, actually bowed. And Mira knew, with a certainty that made her knees weak, that she was looking at Victor D'Amato himself. The Mafia boss walked straight to his son. Alexei was sitting up now, an oxygen mask over his face, but his eyes tracked his father's approach with obvious relief. Victor knelt beside the stretcher, a gesture so unexpected that one of the paramedics actually gasped and placed his hand on his son's head. They spoke in low voices. Mira couldn't hear the words, but she saw Alexei's hand rise, pointing at her. Victor D'Amato stood slowly and turned. His eyes found Myra's across the 15 feet of pavement that separated them. For 3 heartbeats, neither of them moved. Then he walked toward her, and every instinct Mira had screamed at her to run. But she'd learned something living on the streets. Running from predators only made them chase you. So she stood her ground, even as the most dangerous man in the city stopped directly in front of her. "You saved my son's life," Victor said. His voice was surprisingly quiet, almost gentle. Anyone would have done the same, but they didn't. He glanced at the empty street, the locked doors, the curtains moving in windows where people watched without being seen. "You did." Mira said nothing. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Victor reached into his jacket, several of his men tensed, and pulled out a business card. He held it out to her. When she didn't take it, he carefully placed it in the pocket of her threadbare coat. "A life saved is a life owed," he said, the words carrying weight that went beyond their meaning. "This is an old vow. Do you understand? I don't want anything. It doesn't matter what you want." Victor's eyes were impossibly dark, impossible to read. "The debt exists, and in my world, debts are always paid." He turned and gestured to the silver-haired man. "Dominic, see that she and her daughter are properly escorted." "Wait," Mira said, panic finally breaking through. "Escorted where?" Victor D'Amato looked back at her, and for the first time, something almost like sympathy crossed his face. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Because the moment you touched my son, you stopped being invisible. And there are people in the city who will want to use that against me. Two men approached the van where Lily waited. Mira started forward, but Dominic caught her arm. Not roughly, but firmly. "Your daughter will not be harmed," he said. "You have Victor's word. But you need to understand something. You're not under arrest. You're under protection. There's a difference." "It doesn't feel different." "I know," Dominic released her arm. "But you'll be alive to complain about it." That's more than most people can say after entering Victor D'Amato's world. The men opened the van door. Lily clutched her coloring book, her eyes wide with terror, and Mira felt something break inside her chest. She'd spent 2 years keeping her daughter safe, invisible, away from systems that would separate them. And in 5 minutes of doing the right thing, she'd thrown them both into the fire. Victor's SUV pulled away, carrying Alexei, and the ambulance followed. The remaining vehicles formed a convoy around Myra's van, which suddenly looked impossibly small between these dark, powerful machines. Dominic opened the door of the nearest SUV. "After you," he said. Mira looked back at Maple Street one last time. The cafe owner watched from behind his locked door. A few faces appeared in windows. Tomorrow, this street would be full of whispers and theories and fear. The homeless woman who saved a Mafia prince. The woman who vanished in black SUVs. The woman who might never be seen again. Mira climbed into the vehicle, and the door closed behind her with a sound like a vault ceiling shut. The convoy moved through the city like a funeral procession, slow, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Mira sat in the back of the SUV, her hands gripped together so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Through the tinted window, she watched her van following behind, carrying Lily and 2 of Victor's men. "Where are you taking us?" she asked for the 3rd time. Dominic, sitting in the passenger seat, didn't turn around. "Somewhere you'll be comfortable." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting right now." Mira pressed her forehead against the cool glass. The streets outside had changed, the crumbling buildings and check-cashing stores giving way to tree-lined avenues and iron gates. This was the part of the city she'd only seen from highway overpasses. Old money. Real power. The kind of place where people like her were invisible by design. The convoy turned down a private road. Walls appeared on both sides, topped with cameras that tracked their movement. A gate opened before they reached it, closing immediately after the last vehicle passed through. The mansion, sat at the end of a curved driveway like something from a movie. 3 stories of stone and glass, with columns that belonged in history books and windows that reflected the sky like mirrors. Gardens stretched in every direction, perfectly maintained, obscenely green. Mira felt sick. "This is insane," she whispered. "This is necessary," Dominic replied, finally turning to look at her. "You saved Alexei's life. That makes you valuable. And in this world, valuable things get taken if they're not protected." The vehicle stopped. Doors opened. Mira was out and running to her van before anyone could stop her. She yanked open the back door, and Lily tumbled into her arms, sobbing. "Mommy, I was so scared. Those men wouldn't let me go with you." "I know, baby.
I know."
I'm here now." Mira held her daughter tight, breathing in the familiar smell of cheap shampoo and children's sweat. "I'm right here." "Ma'am." One of Victor's men stood a respectful distance away. "If you'll follow me inside." "We're not staying," Mira said flatly. "Please don't make this difficult." "Difficult?" Mira stood, still holding Lily. "You people dragged us away from our home." "Your home is a 1997 Dodge van with a broken taillight and expired registration," Dominic said, approaching from behind. His voice wasn't cruel, just factual. "You've been parking behind the library on weeknights and near the church on weekends. You shower at the community center on 3rd Street. You eat 1 meal a day so your daughter can have 2-inch. Myra's face burned. "You had no right." "We had every right the moment you entered Victor's world. You think we'd bring you here without knowing exactly who you are?" Dominic's expression softened slightly. Mira Chen, 32 years old. Former nursing assistant at St. Catherine's until the hospital closed. Evicted 14 months ago. No family. No support system. Just you and Lily against everything. Hearing her life summarized like that, reduced to a list of failures and survival tactics, made something crack inside Myra's chest. "Please," she said quietly. "We don't want trouble. Just let us go." "I can't do that." "Why not?" Before Dominic could answer, the mansion's front door opened. Victor D'Amato emerged, and the atmosphere changed instantly. Every man straightened. Every conversation stopped. He'd removed his jacket. His sleeves were rolled up. He looked tired in a way that made him somehow more dangerous, not less. "Alexei is asking for you," Victor said, speaking directly to Mira. "He wants to thank you properly." "I don't need thanks. I need to leave." Victor descended the steps slowly, stopping a few feet away. Up close, Mira could see the lines around his eyes, the gray threading through his hair, the weight he carried that had nothing to do with physical strength. "My son was not breathing for 4 minutes," he said quietly. "The paramedics told me that. 4 minutes, without oxygen. Do you know what that does to a brain?" Mira did. She'd seen it in the hospital, before everything collapsed. "But he's fine," Victor continued.
Perfect.
"No damage.
No déficits.
Because you acted when everyone else froze. Because you gave him what he needed to survive until help arrived." He paused. "I cannot let that go unpaid. Then we're even. I saved him, you're grateful, we move on." "That's not how this works." "Then change how it works." The shout came out before Mira could stop it. Lily flinched in her arms. The armed men shifted uncomfortably. Victor simply watched her with those impossibly dark eyes. "I can't," he said simply. "A life saved is a life owed. It's an oath older than this country. Older than most laws. In my world, it's unbreakable." He glanced at Lily, then back to Mira. "You're under my protection now. Both of you. That's not a request or an offer. It's a fact." "Protection from what?" "From everyone who will hear about what happened today." Victor's voice dropped lower. "By nightfall, every criminal organization in this city will know that Victor D'Amato owes a debt to a homeless woman. They'll see weakness. Opportunity. A way to hurt me through you." Mira felt cold spread through her veins. "So we're prisoners. Your guests?" Victor turned and gestured toward the mansion. "Unwilling guests, perhaps. But guests nonetheless. There are worse places to be trapped, Miss Chin." He walked back inside without waiting for a response. Dominic cleared his throat. "The East Wing has been prepared. 2 bedrooms, private bathroom, sitting area. Everything you need. Meals will be brought up until you're comfortable joining the household. And if we try to leave..." Dominic met her eyes. "Then my men will stop you. Gently. Respectfully. But they will stop you." Mira looked down at Lily, who'd stopped crying and was staring at the enormous house with something between fear and wonder. Her daughter hadn't slept in a real bed in over a year. Hadn't had consistent hot meals. Hadn't been truly warm in winter or cool in summer. "How long?" Mira asked. "Until Victor determines it's safe. Could be days. Could be weeks. Could be never." Dominic didn't deny it. Mira adjusted her grip on Lily and started walking toward the mansion. She had no choice, not really. But she could walk in on her own terms, with her head up and her daughter in her arms. Behind her, she heard Dominic speak quietly into his phone. "They're inside.
Inform Victor.
And double the perimeter guards. If word is already spreading, we'll have visitors by midnight." The massive door closed behind them with a sound like a tomb ceiling. Somewhere in this beautiful prison, a teenage boy was alive because of her. Mira just hoped that wouldn't be the thing that finally destroyed them both. The room was bigger than the apartment Mira had lost. She stood in the doorway, unable to make herself step inside. Lily had no such hesitation. She'd already run to the enormous bed and was bouncing on a mattress that probably cost more than their van. A real bathroom was visible through an open door, complete with a tub that could fit 3 people. The windows overlooked gardens that seemed to stretch forever. "This is wrong," Mira whispered. Mommy, look. There's a TV. Lily's voice carried pure joy. A real TV. Can we watch cartoons? A woman appeared in the hallway behind Mira. Older, maybe 60, with kind eyes and an expression that had seen everything twice. She wore simple clothes and carried fresh towels. I'm Rosa, she said with a slight accent. I manage the household. If you need anything, you ask me. Yes. We need to leave. Rosa's expression didn't change. That's not something I can help with. But food? Clothes? Those things I can do. She studied Lily, who was now examining the TV remote like it was alien technology. When did she last eat? Yesterday. Dinner. The admission made Mira feel like she was failing all over again. I'll bring something up. And clothes, what size? We don't need charity. Rosa stepped closer, her voice dropping. Listen to me, girl. I've worked for Victor D'Amato for 23 years. I've seen people come to this house for many reasons. Some leave. Some don't. But the ones who survive? They're the ones smart enough to accept help when it's offered. She touched Myra's arm gently. Take the food. Take the clothes. Save your fights for things that matter. She left before Mira could argue. Lily had found a stuffed animal on the bed, an expensive-looking teddy bear that had definitely been placed there deliberately. She clutched it like it might disappear. Mommy, are we in trouble? Mira crossed the room and sat beside her daughter.
No, baby.
We're going to stay here for a little while, until some grown-up things get figured out. The man outside, the one with the gun, he seemed nice. He asked me about my coloring book. He had a gun on his belt, but he smiled when he talked to me. Lily leaned against Myra's shoulder. Is this what houses are like? Real houses? The question broke Myra's heart. Her daughter barely remembered their apartment. This mansion, this gilded cage, was becoming Lily's baseline for normal. Some houses, Mira said carefully. Not most. A knock interrupted them. Rosa returned with a cart loaded with food, sandwiches, fruit, soup, juice boxes, cookies. More food than Mira had seen in weeks. Lily's eyes went huge.
Eat, Rosa commanded.
Both of you. You're too thin. She left again, and Lily attacked the food with desperate efficiency. Mira tried to eat slowly, to savor it, but her body betrayed her. The sandwich disappeared in minutes. The soup followed. By the time they finished, both of them felt almost drunk on fullness. Miss Jen. A voice from the doorway. One of Victor's men. Younger, nervous. Mr. D'Amato requests your presence. The girl can stay here. Rosa will watch her. Every maternal instinct in Myra's body screamed no. But Lily was already yawning, food coma setting in, and Rosa had reappeared with a gentle smile. I raised 4 children, Rosa said quietly. She'll be safe. You have my word. Mira followed the young man through hallways that felt designed to disorient. Paintings worth more than cars hung on walls. Marble floors reflected recessed lighting. Everything whispered money and power and danger. They stopped at a heavy wooden door. The man knocked once, then opened it. Victor's office was exactly what Mira expected. Dark wood, leather furniture, walls lined with books that had probably never been read. Victor sat behind a massive desk, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He looked more tired than before. Sit, he said, gesturing to a chair. Mira remained standing. If this is about payment, I already told you. Alexei was poisoned. The words hit like cold water. Myra's mind raced back to the boy's collapse, the way he'd grabbed his throat, the blue tinge to his lips. The doctors confirmed it an hour ago, Victor continued, his voice deadly calm. A rare toxin, slow-acting. Designed to look like a heart attack or seizure, he took a long drink. Without immediate CPR, he would have died before reaching the hospital. The toxin would have been undetectable. Who would poison a teenager? Victor's laugh was bitter. Who wouldn't? My enemies are numerous. My allies are conditional. And my son is my only heir. He set down the glass with careful control. Someone tried to murder Alexei. They nearly succeeded. And then you appeared. Wrong place, wrong time. Or exactly right place, right time. Victor stood and walked to the window, his back to her. I told you that you're under my protection. I wasn't exaggerating the danger. Whoever poisoned my son will try again. And when they learn about you, when they learn that I've brought you here, that I've invoked the old oath, they'll see an opportunity. Mira felt ice forming in her stomach. An opportunity for what? Victor turned to face her. In the dim light, he looked older, more human, less like the monster from newspaper headlines. To hurt me through you. To use you as leverage. To turn my debt into your death, he paused. I'm sorry, Miss Chen. You saved my son's life, and in doing so, you've painted a target on your back that will never fully disappear. Then let us go. Let us disappear the way we know how. Disappear? You? Victor shook his head. You have a daughter in school records. Hospital records. You existed in systems before you fell through the cracks. My enemies have resources you can't imagine. They'd find you in days, maybe hours. The reality settled over Mira like a weight. She'd spent 2 years being invisible by necessity. Now, with one act of kindness, she'd become painfully, dangerously visible. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Right now? Nothing. Stay alive. Keep your daughter safe. Let me find who tried to kill my son. Victor returned to his desk. Later, when this is over, we'll discuss repayment. But first we survive. You saved Alexei's life. That makes you family whether you like it or not. And I protect family. His eyes met hers. Even when that protection feels like imprisonment. A soft knock interrupted them. Dominic entered without waiting for permission.
Victor.
East perimeter. Muddy footprints on the balcony outside the woman's room.
Fresh.
Someone was there within the last hour. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Victor's face became stone. Show me. Mira ran. She didn't wait for permission or explanation. She simply bolted from Victor's office, following the path back to the east wing by pure instinct. Behind her, she heard heavy footsteps and shouted commands, but nothing mattered except reaching Lily. The door to their room was still closed. Mira threw it open. Rosa sat in a chair by the bed, a book in her lap. Lily was curled under expensive sheets, breathing softly, the teddy bear clutched to her chest. Both looked up at Myra's explosive entrance, Rosa with concern, Lily with sleepy confusion. Mommy. Mira crossed the room in 3 strides and wrapped her arms around her daughter. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. I'm here, baby. Go back to sleep. Victor appeared in the doorway with Dominic and 3 armed men. He took in the scene, the sleeping child, the frightened mother, Rosa's protective positioning, and his expression darkened further. Rosa, take the girl to the West Wing. My private quarters. No one gets near her without my direct authorization. Victor, she just fell asleep.
Now.
The single word carried absolute authority. Rosa moved immediately, gently gathering Lily, who was too exhausted to fully wake, and carrying her out. Mira tried to follow, but Victor blocked her path. Let Dominic show you something first. He led her to the balcony door. In the wash of floodlights that had suddenly illuminated the grounds, she could see what Dominic had reported. Muddy footprints. Boot prints, actually. Size 10 or 11. They led from the garden below, up the decorative stonework, to the balcony railing. Someone had climbed up, had stood right outside while Lily slept, while Mira had been in Victor's office. The guards didn't see anyone? Myra's voice came out smaller than she intended. No, Dominic knelt by the prints, studying them with professional intensity. Which means whoever did this knows our patrol patterns. Knows our blind spots. This wasn't opportunistic, this was planned. How is that possible? We've been here less than 3 hours. Victor's jaw tightened. Word travels fast in certain circles. I have enemies who've been waiting years for an opening. A vulnerability, he looked at Mira. You're that vulnerability now. One of the armed men spoke into a radio in rapid Italian. Another was photographing the footprints. The third had his weapon drawn, scanning the dark gardens like he expected someone to materialize from the shadows. I need you to understand something, Victor said, turning to face Mira fully. This house is a fortress. 24 guards. Cameras everywhere. Walls designed to stop anything short of a military assault. And someone still got close enough to look through your window, he paused. That means someone inside helped them. The words hung in the air like poison. You think one of your own people. I think someone wanted to send a message. Maybe gather intelligence. Maybe just prove they could reach you whenever they wanted. Victor's hands clenched into fists. Either way, the message is received. Dominic stood, brushing dirt from his hands. We need to sweep the entire property. Check every guard's background again. And Victor, we need to talk about the council.
Not now.
Yes, now. Dominic's voice was firm. They're going to hear about this. About her. And they're going to have opinions. Let them have opinions.
Victor.
I said not now. The shout echoed off the stone walls. The armed men pretended not to notice. Dominic pressed his lips together, but said nothing more. Mira felt like she was watching something crack. This man, this feared Mafia boss who commanded absolute loyalty, was showing fractures. And somehow that made everything more frightening, not less. I want to see my daughter, Mira said quietly.
Victor nodded.
Dominic will take you. The West Wing is more secure.
No exterior walls, no accessible windows.
You'll both stay there until we identify who did this. And then what? Then we make sure they never try again. The way he said it, calm, certain, final, reminded Mira exactly who she was dealing with. This wasn't a protector or a guardian. This was a man who solved problems with violence and didn't lose sleep over it. Dominic led her through more hallways up a flight of stairs to a section of the mansion that felt different. More cameras. Heavier doors. Men stationed at regular intervals. All armed. All watching everything. Lily was already asleep again in a room that looked like it belonged to royalty. Rosa sat beside the bed, stroking the girl's hair with the tenderness of a grandmother. She didn't fully wake, Rosa whispered. Asked for you once. I said you were coming. She smiled and went back to sleep. Mira sank into a chair on the other side of the bed. Her hands were shaking.
Rosa noticed.
Drink this. She pressed a cup of tea into Myra's hands. Chamomile. It helps. Nothing helps. You'd be surprised. Rosa stood slowly, her knees creaking. I'll be just outside if you need anything. And Miss Chin? Victor meant what he said. No one will get to this room. I've seen him defend things he values.
It's
absolute. After Rosa left, Mira sat in the near darkness, watching her daughter breathe. She thought about the footprints, about someone standing outside, watching, planning, about Victor's cracking composure and Dominic's warnings about a council. She'd saved a life this morning. By night, she'd learned that good deeds could have terrible consequences. Somewhere below, in the depths of this fortress mansion, Victor D'Amato was making phone calls, issuing orders, preparing for war, and Mira, who'd spent 2 years trying to be invisible, was now at the center of it. She reached out and touched Lily's hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I got us into this. But Lily just slept, clutching her new teddy bear, dreaming dreams that didn't include muddy footprints or men with guns or mothers who'd made deals with devils without meaning to. Outside the window, floodlights swept the grounds. Guards patrolled in pairs. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the walls, someone who'd climbed a balcony and left boot prints was reporting back to whoever had sent them. The hunt had begun. Mira just didn't know yet if she was the hunter or the prey. Morning came with unexpected gentleness, sunlight through gauze curtains, the smell of coffee, Lily's soft breathing beside her. For 3 seconds, Mira forgot where they were. Then she saw the armed guard outside the door, and reality crashed back. Rosa arrived with breakfast on a cart, fresh fruit, pastries, juice, scrambled eggs that were still steaming. Lily woke up slowly, blinking at the spread like it might be a dream. Eat quickly, Rosa said. Alexei is awake. He's been asking for you since dawn. I'm not leaving Lily. She comes too. Victor's orders. You stay together until this is resolved. Rosa's expression softened. Besides, the boy wants to meet her.
He knows she's your daughter.
He feels terrible that his situation has affected you both. 20 minutes later, Mira and Lily followed Dominic through the mansion to another wing entirely. The medical equipment visible through an open doorway told her this was more than a bedroom. It was a private hospital room that happened to have expensive furniture. Alexei D'Amato sat propped against pillows, and 4-line in his arm, looking pale but alive. His dark eyes tracked their entrance with sharp intelligence. A private nurse checked monitors in the corner. You can go, Maria, Alexei said. His voice was rough but steady. I want to talk to them alone. The nurse hesitated, glanced at Dominic, then left when he nodded. Your father won't like that, Dominic warned. My father isn't here. Alexei gestured to chairs beside the bed. Please.
See.
Mira remained standing, keeping Lily slightly behind her. The teenager noticed, and his expression crumpled. You're afraid of me. Because of what happened. Because of who my father is.
I'm cautious, Mira corrected.
There's a difference. Is there? Alexei looked down at his hands. I'm 16 years old. Yesterday, I was buying coffee. Today I'm the reason you can't leave this house, he met her eyes. I remember you. Kneeling beside me. Your hands on my chest. Counting. You wouldn't stop. Even when it hurt. CPR isn't gentle. It's also not something most people would do for a stranger. Alexei's attention shifted to Lily, who was peeking out from behind her mother. I'm Alexei. Lily, she whispered. That's a pretty name. Is that your teddy bear? Lily nodded, holding it tighter. I had one just like that when I was little. My mom gave it to me. Something sad crossed his face. She died when I was 7. The simple confession broke through Myra's defenses slightly. She'd seen Victor as a monster, his world as purely evil. But this boy, this teenager who'd almost died on a sidewalk, was just a kid who'd lost his mother and was trying to say thank you. I'm glad you're okay, Mira said quietly. Because of you, Alexei took a breath, wincing slightly. But there's something you need to know. Something I haven't told my father yet. Dominic straightened. Alexei.
She needs to know, Dominic.
She's in danger because of me. The least I can do is be honest. He looked back at Mira. I didn't just collapse. Before I blacked out, I felt
wrong.
My throat burned. My chest felt tight. And I remember someone bumping into me.
Hard. Apologizing.
Handing me my coffee cup back. Myra's mind immediately went clinical. Your coffee. You were drinking it before the collapse? I'd just gotten it from Maple Street Cafe. Took maybe 2 sips before this guy, tall, wearing a hood, bumped into me. Knocked the cup out of my hand. He was super apologetic, picked it up, handed it back. I thought it was an accident. But you drank more after he returned it.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 more sips. Then everything started burning. Alexei's hands clenched the sheets. I thought I was having an allergic reaction or something. But the doctors said it was poison. Which means someone poisoned your coffee after you bought it, Mira finished. In the 30 seconds between when you left the cafe and when you collapsed. Dominic was already on his phone, speaking rapid Italian. Alexei watched him, then turned back to Mira. You were a nurse, right? That's what Dominic said. Nursing assistant. Different training. But you know medical stuff. Symptoms. Diagnoses. Alexei leaned forward slightly, ignoring the for that pulled. The burning in my throat. It started immediately after I drank. But the collapse took maybe 2 minutes. Does that tell you anything about what they used? Myra's brain was already sorting through possibilities. Fast-acting but delayed symptom presentation. Burning sensation indicating possible caustic properties or inflammatory response. Cardiac arrest as final presentation. I'd need to know what the doctors found in your system. They won't tell me. They'll only tell my father. Then ask him. I can't, Alexei's voice dropped. Because if I tell him about the man who bumped into me, he'll tear the city apart looking for him.
People will die.
Maybe innocent people who just happened to be in the wrong place. Your father needs to know, Dominic said sharply, lowering his phone. This changes everything.
How?
Because it means the attack was opportunistic, not planned. Whoever did this was following you, waiting for an opening, and took it when they saw one. Dominic looked at Mira. Which means they're still out there. Still watching. Still waiting for another chance. Lily pressed closer to Myra's leg. Mira put a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder. There's more, Alexei said quietly. When I was half-conscious before you started CPR, I heard voices. 2 men talking. One said, "Is he dead?" The other said, "Give it a minute, they were waiting to make sure I died." The room went cold. You're saying someone watched you collapse and did nothing, Mira said slowly. They wanted to confirm you died. They wanted to watch. Alexei's face had gone pale. Which means it wasn't just about killing me. It was about making sure. About witnessing it. About. He stopped as the door burst open. Victor D'Amato filled the doorway, his expression thunderous. Why is the nurse outside? Why are you alone with? He stopped, seeing Mira and Lily. His fury banked slightly. Miss Jen, I didn't know you were visiting. Alexei asked to see me. To say thank you. Victor studied his son, and Mira saw something pass between them, a conversation without words, the kind only family could have. I'll let you finish, Victor said carefully. But Alexei, we need to talk after. About what happened. Everything that happened. I know, Papa. The use of the informal word, Papa instead of father, made Victor's expression crack for just a moment. He nodded and left, closing the door softly. Alexei waited until the footsteps faded, then looked at Mira. Will you help me remember? The man who bumped into me. What he looked like.
What he said.
Before I tell my father, and everything becomes more violent, Dominic supplied quietly.
More deadly.
More irreversible. Mira looked at this 16-year-old boy who'd almost died, who understood that the truth would unleash something terrible, and who was still trying to be careful about who got hurt. Tell your father, she said. Tell him everything. Because the people who did this, they left footprints outside my daughter's window last night. They're not done. And careful doesn't keep anyone safe anymore. Alexei's face fell, but he nodded. The war was coming whether they wanted it or not. And Mira had just chosen a side. Victor's office had transformed into a war room. Maps covered the desk. Photographs lined one wall. Surveillance shots, grainy and anonymous. Dominic stood beside Victor, both men studying security footage on a laptop. 3 other men Mira didn't recognize sat in chairs, their faces hard and patient. You're sure about this? Victor asked when Mira entered. Your son remembers details. I might recognize patterns he doesn't. Mira had left Lily with Rosa, triple-checked the guards, and still felt like her heart was being torn in half. But I need to know what we're looking for. Victor gestured to the laptop. Maple Street Cafe.
Exterior cameras.
Starting from when Alexei arrived. The footage played. Mira watched Alexei walk into frame, confident, young, alive. He entered the cafe, emerged 2 minutes later with a coffee cup. Started walking down the sidewalk. Then it happened. A figure in a dark hoodie appeared from the left. The collision looked accidental, 2 people not paying attention. The cup fell. Both bent to retrieve it. Brief exchange. Alexei continued walking, drinking from the cup. 90 seconds later, he grabbed his throat.
Pause it, Mira said.
Go back to the collision. Victor replayed the sequence. The hooded figure's face never appeared on camera, perfectly angled away, like he knew exactly where the lens was pointed. He's a professional, one of the other men said. Knows camera blind spots. Knows timing. Or he's lucky, Dominic countered. Nobody's that lucky. Victor zoomed in on the hooded figure's hands. Look. When he picks up the cup, his right hand goes inside the lid. Just for a second. Mira leaned closer. He was right. The movement was quick, practiced, invisible unless you were looking for it. He had the poison ready, she said. Probably in a small vial or capsule. Drops it in, returns the cup, apologizes. Alexei never suspects. And then he disappears. Victor fast-forwarded the footage. The hooded figure walked away, turned a corner, and vanished. We lose him here. No other cameras caught him. What about after Alexei collapsed? Mira asked. Alexei said he heard voices. 2 men confirming he was dying. Victor's jaw tightened. He changed the video feed to a different angle, wider, showing more of the street. Mira watched herself run to Alexei's side, start CPR. The crowd forming. And there, at the edge of the frame, 2 figures standing together. Not helping. Not panicking. Just watching. Them, Victor said quietly. They stayed for 45 seconds after you started CPR, then left together. Moving against the crowd, not with it. One of the men stood. I can have their faces run through every database we have access to. No, Victor cut him off. If these are professionals, their faces won't be in any database we can reach safely. We need something else. He looked at Mira. You were there. You saw the street, the people, the details. What did you notice? Mira closed her eyes, forcing herself back to that moment. The morning sun. The cafe. The smell of coffee and fear. Alexei on the ground. The crowd. The cup, she said suddenly. When the paramedics arrived, there was a disposable cup on the ground near Alexei. I remember stepping over it. Dominic straightened. If the poisoner dropped liquid into it, there might be residue. Trace amounts. Victor was already moving, grabbing his jacket. The police would have cleared the scene by now, but if the cup ended up in the cafe's trash. Victor, if you go back to Maple Street yourself, you'll draw attention, one of the men warned. Every rival family will know within the hour. Then I'll draw attention. Victor's voice was steel. My son was nearly murdered on a public street. I want everyone to know I'm looking for who did it. He glanced at Mira. You don't have to come. Yes, I do. I'm the only one who saw exactly where that cup landed. 20 minutes later, Mira sat in the back of an SUV, different from yesterday, armored, with tinted windows so dark the world outside looked like a nightmare. Victor sat across from her, Dominic in the front passenger seat. 2 more vehicles followed behind. There's something you should know, Victor said as they drove. Taking you back to the street is a risk. If word has spread about who you are, about what you did, there might be people watching for you. So I'll have protection. Protection draws attention. I'm giving you something else. He pulled out a small device, looked like a car key fob. Press this button, you signal immediate distress. Every man I have will converge on your location within minutes. Mira took it, the weight somehow heavier than it should be. I never wanted this, she said quietly. I never wanted to be part of your world. I know, Victor looked out the window. But my world has a way of claiming people whether they agree or not. The only choice you get is how you survive it. They pulled onto Maple Street, and Myra's chest tightened. The cafe looked normal, people coming and going, morning routine unchanged. But she felt eyes on them. Curtains moving. Conversation stopping. The convoy parked, and Victor's men emerged first, establishing a perimeter. Dominic opened Myra's door. Quick and quiet, he said. Find the cup, get back in the vehicle. Mira stepped onto the sidewalk where, just yesterday, she'd saved a life. The exact spot was obvious. Someone had spray-painted an outline on the concrete, probably police marking the scene. Flowers had been left nearby. A teddy bear. A note that said, prayers for recovery. People thought Alexei had died here. The cup was there. Mira pointed to a spot 3 feet from the outline. I remember because I almost kicked it when I knelt down. One of Victor's men was already checking the cafe's exterior trash bins. He pulled out a black bag, opened it carefully, began sorting through coffee cups and napkins and discarded food. Got something, he called. Disposable cup. Has a logo matching the cafe. Mostly empty, but there's liquid residue inside. Victor crossed the sidewalk in 3 strides. Bag it. Let him go, Victor ordered. We have what we came for. They piled back into the vehicles and left Maple Street behind. But Mira kept looking back, watching the cafe shrink in the distance. Someone had recorded them, had proof that Victor D'Amato returned to the scene with the homeless woman who saved his son. By nightfall, that video would be everywhere. And everyone who wanted to hurt Victor would know exactly what Mira looked like. "We just made it worse, didn't we?" she asked. Victor didn't answer, which was answer enough. The cup sat in its evidence bag on the seat beside him, potentially holding answers. But outside the darkened windows, new questions multiplied faster than any lab could provide solutions. The lab results came back in 4 hours. Mira sat with Lily in the West Wing, trying to read her daughter a story, when Dominic appeared at the door. His face told her everything before he spoke. "Victor wants you downstairs."
Now.
"What's wrong?" "Everything." Rosa took Lily without being asked, already pulling out a puzzle to distract the girl. Mira followed Dominic through corridors that felt darker than before, downstairs she hadn't known existed, to a level of the mansion that smelled of old stone and older secrets. Victor's office door was open. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. 5 men sat in chairs arranged in a semicircle facing Victor's desk. They were older, 50s, 60s, dressed in expensive suits that couldn't hide the violence in their eyes. These weren't soldiers or enforcers.
These were the men who commanded them.
"Miss Chun," Victor said, his voice carefully neutral. "Thank you for joining us. These gentlemen are representatives of the council." The word carried weight that made Myra's skin crawl. "The Mafia High Council," one of the men clarified. He had white hair and a voice like gravel. "We oversee the families, maintain order, resolve disputes," his eyes fixed on Mira like she was a bug he was considering crushing. "And we've received concerning reports about recent events." Mira looked to Victor, but his expression was unreadable. "The toxin," another council member said, younger but no less dangerous. The lab identified it. Tetrodotoxin. Extremely rare. Only available through specific channels. "Channels we control," the white-haired man added. "Which means someone within our organization tried to kill Alexei D'Amato. Someone with access to restricted materials. Someone close." The implications hit Mira like a physical blow. This wasn't just an assassination attempt, it was a civil war brewing. "We're investigating," Victor said carefully. "Following leads." While keeping a homeless woman under your protection, a third council member interrupted. "Invoking the old oath. Making yourself vulnerable for a stranger." "She saved my son's life. And now she's a liability," the white-haired man stood, approaching Victor's desk. "Word has spread, Victor. Every family knows about her. Knows you've brought her into your home. Knows you've declared an unbreakable debt." He paused. "Some see it as weakness. Others see opportunity. Let them see what they want. We can't afford your sentiment." The man's fist slammed the desk. "Someone tried to kill your heir using resources that should be impossible to obtain. That suggests a conspiracy. Multiple players. Coordinated action." He gestured to Mira without looking at her. "And you've given them the perfect target to manipulate you." Mira felt like she was watching her death sentence being written in real time. "The council's position is clear," the younger member said. "Eliminate the vulnerability. The woman and her daughter represent an unacceptable risk. They must be removed from the equation." The words were clinical. Removed. Like they were discussing garbage, not human lives. "No," Victor's voice was quiet but absolute. The room went silent.
No.
The white-haired man turned slowly. "You're refusing a council directive?" "I'm protecting someone under my oath. That supersedes council authority." "Nothing supersedes council authority. The old laws do." Victor stood, and suddenly he seemed larger, more dangerous. "The life debt is older than this council. Older than our organization. It's foundation law, the code we built everything else on. You want me to break it? To murder a woman who saved my son? Then you're asking me to destroy the very principles that give us legitimacy." One of the silent council members finally spoke. Oldest of them all, with a scarred face and eyes that had seen generations of violence.
Victor.
We understand your position, but understand ours. Someone with access to restricted materials tried to kill Alexei. That means the conspiracy reaches high, possibly council-level high. The temperature in the room dropped. If traitors exist at that level, the scarred man continued, they'll use anything to cover their tracks. Including her, he nodded toward Mira. They could frame her, make it look like she poisoned Alexei, then performed CPR as cover. Make you look like a fool who brought his son's murderer into his home. That's absurd, Mira said, her voice cutting through the tension. I was nowhere near that cafe until after he collapsed. Security footage proves it. Security footage can be edited, the younger council member said. Witnesses can be bought. Evidence can be manufactured, he smiled without warmth. By tomorrow, we could make everyone believe you tried to kill Alexei D'Amato. And Victor's protection of you would look like collaboration. Mira felt the trap closing. They weren't threatening to kill her. They were threatening to turn her into a weapon against Victor himself. 72 hours, the white-haired man said, returning to his seat. That's what we're giving you, Victor. 3 days to either find the real conspirators or accept reality. And if I refuse, then the council will act without you. And your protection won't matter, he straightened his jacket. We've maintained order for 50 years by making hard choices. Don't make us add you to that list. They stood as one and filed out. Dominic appeared to escort them, his face pale. The door closed, leaving Victor and Mira alone in the heavy silence. They'll kill us, Mira whispered. In 3 days, they'll kill me and Lily. Not if I find who's really responsible first. Victor turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not for himself, for them. But Miss Chun, I need you to understand something. These aren't empty threats. The council has unlimited resources. If they decide you're a problem, nowhere on earth will be safe. Then let me go. Let me disappear before. You think you can hide from them? Victor's laugh was bitter. They found the video from Maple Street within 2 hours. By now they have your full history. Your daughter's school records. Every place you've ever been, he sat heavily in his chair. The moment I invoked the life debt, you became part of this world. There's no going back. Myra's legs felt weak. She sank into a chair. What do? We find the truth. Fast. Victor pulled up files on his computer. The tetrodotoxin came from our secure facility. Only 12 people have access. I trust all of them. Or I thought I did, he looked at her. You've survived on the streets for 2 years. You see things others miss. I need that perspective. I need you to help me find which of my most trusted men tried to murder my son. Why would I possibly be able to? Because you're an outsider. Because you have no loyalty to these men, no history clouding your judgment. Because you see them the way they really are, not the way I want them to be, his voice cracked slightly. And because if we don't find answers in 72 hours, the council will kill you, your daughter, and probably me and Alexei too. They'll call it restoring order. They'll install new leadership. And everyone who might object will be too afraid to act. Mira thought of Lily upstairs, playing with puzzles, safe and fed for the first time in months. She thought of muddy footprints on a balcony, of hooded figures and poison coffee, of a teenage boy who'd done nothing wrong except be born into the wrong family. Where do we start? She asked. Victor's expression shifted, relief mixed with grim determination. With the 12 men who had access to the toxin. Starting with the 2 I trust most. Why them? Because, Victor said quietly, betrayal always comes from those closest to you. That's what makes it betrayal. The 12 names were displayed on Victor's screen like a hit list. Mira studied them while Victor paced. Each man had a photo, a history, a record of loyalties spanning decades. These weren't random soldiers. These were the inner circle, the trusted few. Rocco and Enzo, Victor said, tapping 2 photos. My father's men originally. They helped raise me after my mother died. Rocco taught me to shoot. Enzo taught me strategy. His voice carried decades of affection and current suspicion. If I can't trust them, I can't trust anyone. Then we watch them first, Mira said. Watch them how? They know this house better than I do. They'll spot surveillance. Mira thought back to her time on the streets, the survival skill of being invisible, of observing without being observed. You watch from above. I watch from below. I don't understand. They see you as the boss. They see your guards as threats. But me. Mira gestured to herself. Worn clothes, exhausted face, the appearance of a victim. I'm just the scared woman you're protecting. Harmless.
Traumatized.
Not worth paying attention to. Victor studied her for a long moment. You're saying you want to spy on my men. I'm saying I already am invisible to them. I've been invisible my whole life. To social workers, to cops, to everyone who should have helped but looked right through me instead. Her voice hardened. Let me use it. It's dangerous. Everything is dangerous now. At least this gives us a chance.
Victor nodded slowly.
Dominic will shadow you. At a distance. If anything.
No Dominique. Nos a dos.
Just me, wandering a house where I'm supposedly a prisoner, looking lost and afraid. Which won't be hard because I am lost and afraid. Miss Chen.
Mira.
If we're doing this, call me Mira. Something shifted in Victor's expression, a crack in the armor of formality.
Mira.
If they suspect you're watching them, they'll act. And I won't be able to stop what happens. Then I won't get caught. She left his office and began her reconnaissance immediately. The mansion was enormous. Dozens of rooms, multiple wings, corridors that twisted back on themselves. Guards were posted at regular intervals, but they barely glanced at her. Just another prisoner wandering her cage. Mira moved slowly, deliberately lost. She asked directions, pretended confusion, built a mental map while appearing helpless. And she watched. Rocco was easy to spot, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar across his left eyebrow. He coordinated guard rotations from a room near the east entrance. Enzo was quieter, thinner, always carrying a tablet and speaking in low tones on his phone. For 2 hours, Mira saw nothing suspicious. Just men doing their jobs. Protecting the house. Following orders. Then she turned a corner near the servants' staircase and heard voices. Can't keep waiting. The window is closing. The council bought us 72 hours. That's enough. Mira froze. The voices came from a storage room, door slightly ajar, light spilling into the hallway. She recognized one voice. Enzo. What if he finds out before then? The second voice was Rocco's. He won't. He's too busy playing protector to the homeless saint. And the woman? She's smart. I've seen her watching. She's scared. Broken. Not a threat, a pause. Besides, after tomorrow it won't matter. We finish what was started, and Victor's precious new family disappears along with his authority. Myra's blood turned to ice. She pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. You're sure about the timing? Rocco asked. The council wants results. We give them results. Alexei dies, really dies this time, and we make it look like Victor's incompetence. Maybe the woman's involvement. Either way, he's finished. And if he fights, then he dies too. The council's already written the ending. We're just making sure it happens cleanly. Enzo's voice dropped lower. Tomorrow night. The medication switch. The nurse won't notice until it's too late. Alexei will have another complication, and this time there won't be a street hero to save him. Footsteps approached the door. Mira moved, fast, silent, the way she'd learned moving between sleeping shelters without waking anyone. She slipped into a nearby bathroom, pressed the door almost closed, and watched through the crack. Enzo emerged first, tablet in hand, looking calm and professional. Rocco followed, checking his phone. They walked past her hiding spot without a glance. Tomorrow night, Rocco repeated. And the coast is clear? Victor will be meeting with the council representatives at the downtown office. Required attendance. He'll be gone for at least 3 hours. Perfect window. They turned a corner and disappeared. Mira waited 30 seconds that felt like 30 years, then ran. She found Victor in his office, door closed, working through files with Dominic. She burst in without knocking, startling both men. "It's Rocco and Enzo," she gasped. "They're planning to kill Alexei tomorrow night. They're going to switch his medication, make it look like a complication." "Slow down," Victor commanded, but his face had gone white. "What did you hear?" Mira repeated everything word for word. Her time on the streets had trained her to remember conversations. You needed to recall exactly what the shelter worker said about bed availability, exactly what the cop said about moving along. Memory was survival. When she finished, Victor sat heavily. Dominic's hand had moved to his weapon. "It can't be them," Victor said, but his voice carried no conviction. "They're family. They're traitors," Dominic finished flatly. "And they're working with the council. Or, at least elements within it." "The council wanted to force your hand," Mira said. "But Rocco and Enzo are giving them what they want before the deadline. Alexei dies. You look incompetent. The council removes you and installs new leadership. Probably them." Victor's hands clenched into fists. "My father trusted these men with my life. I grew up believing they would die for this family. Maybe they would die for your father's family," Mira said quietly. "But you're not your father. And they want something he wouldn't give them." Power, Dominic was already typing on his phone. "They want to modernize. Change how we operate. Victor's been blocking them for years, insisting on the old ways, the old codes. This is their coup." "Tomorrow night," Victor said, his voice dangerous and cold. "They'll expect me at the council meeting. They'll make their move when I'm gone." "So, we don't go," Dominic suggested.
No, Victor stood.
"We go. We play along. We make them think we suspect nothing." He looked at Mira. "And while I'm gone, you stay with Alexei. You and every loyal guard I have. They'll know something's wrong if you change security protocols," Mira warned. "Then we don't change anything obvious." "But Dominic," Victor turned to his second-in-command. "I want men I trust absolutely posted inside Alexei's room. Dressed as medical staff. Hidden. When Rocco and Enzo make their move, we catch them in the act." "And then?" Dominic asked. Victor's expression became the thing of nightmares. "Then they learn what happens when you betray the D'Amato family. When you try to murder my son. When you threaten someone under my protection." He walked to the window, looking out at the grounds where men patrolled, some loyal, some apparently not. "Tomorrow night," he said quietly, "we end this. One way or another." Mira thought of Lily sleeping upstairs, safe for now. Of Alexei recovering, unaware of tomorrow's planned murder. Of herself, caught in a web of violence she'd never asked to enter. She'd saved one life on a sidewalk. Tomorrow, she'd have to help save it again. And this time, the monsters wouldn't be invisible. They'd be standing right beside her, wearing familiar faces, speaking with trusted voices, proving that the worst betrayals always came from within. Tomorrow came with terrible slowness. Mira barely slept. Every sound made her jump. Footsteps in the hall, distant doors closing, the house settling around her. Lily sensed her mother's fear and clung close, asking questions Mira couldn't answer. "Why do you keep checking the door, Mommy?" "Just being careful, baby." "Are the bad men coming back?" Mira pulled her daughter close. "Not if I can help it." By noon, Victor had positioned his pieces carefully. 3 guards he trusted absolutely. Men who'd serve his father, who had no connection to Rocco or Enzo, were dressed as medical staff. They entered Alexei's room throughout the day on various pretexts, staying longer each time until their presence became normal. Alexei knew something was happening. Mira saw it in his eyes when she visited, the teenage bravado stripped away, revealing the scared kid underneath. "They're really going to try again?" he asked quietly. "Not if we stop them first. My father's men. People he trusted." Alexei looked at his hands. "How do you ever trust anyone after this?" Mira didn't have an answer. At 6 o'clock, Victor prepared to leave for the council meeting. He looked the part. Perfect suit, calm expression, every inch the confident boss. But when he stopped by Alexei's room, Mira saw his hands shake as he touched his son's face. "I'll be back in 3 hours," Victor said. "Maybe less." Papa, Alexei caught his father's hand. "Be careful. If they're willing to kill me, they'll try for you too." "Let them try." Victor's voice carried ice and fury. "Dominic will be with me. The men here are loyal. And Miss Chen." He glanced at Mira. "She sees things others miss. Trust her." After Victor left, the mansion felt different. Quieter. Like it was holding its breath. Mira stayed in Alexei's room with the disguised guards. One stood by the door, positioned to see the hallway. Another checked medical equipment that didn't need checking. The third sat in the corner, reading a magazine, looking bored. They were all armed. 7 o'clock passed. Then 7:30. Alexei tried to watch TV but couldn't focus. Mira held Lily, who'd fallen asleep despite the tension, her small body warm and trusting. At 8:15, footsteps approached. The guard by the door straightened slightly, the only indication he'd heard. The footsteps stopped outside. A soft knock. "Evening check," a familiar voice called. "Enzo." The guard opened the door. Enzo entered with his tablet and professional smile, followed by Rocco carrying a medical bag. They both looked perfectly normal, perfectly trustworthy. "How's our patient?" Enzo asked, checking his tablet. "Good," Alexei said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Bored." "That's a good sign." Enzo made notes. "Rocco brought your evening medications. Your father wants us following the doctor's orders exactly." Rocco approached with a small cup containing pills and a bottle of water. "These will help you sleep. Doctors said rest is important." He held out the cup. Time seemed to slow. Mira saw Alexei's hand reach for the pills. Saw the guard in the corner shift position slightly. Saw Enzo's eyes track everyone's positions with calculating precision. "Wait," Mira said. Everyone looked at her. "Those aren't his regular pills," she continued, standing carefully so she didn't wake Lily. "His evening medication is a single white tablet. Those are 3 different pills." Rocco's smile didn't waver. "Doctor changed the prescription this afternoon. Added supplements." "Let me see the bottle." "Miss Chen, I don't think."
Let me see
the bottle. Something changed in Rocco's expression. Just a flicker, but enough. His hand moved toward his jacket. 3 guns appeared simultaneously. The disguised guards moved with professional speed, weapons trained on Rocco and Enzo before either could react. "Hands where we can see them," the guard by the door commanded.
now.
Rocco froze, his hand halfway to his concealed weapon. Enzo's tablet clattered to the floor. "This is insane," Enzo said, his voice still calm. "You're pointing guns at Victor's most trusted men because this woman has paranoia." "Show us the pills," the corner guard interrupted. "The bottle. Prescription label. Everything." Rocco's jaw tightened. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then he lunged, not toward the guards but toward Alexei. His hand came out of his jacket holding a syringe, the movement trained and fast. He was going to inject Alexei directly, finish the job manually. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed room. Rocco screamed, the syringe flying from his shattered hand. He stumbled back, clutching his wrist, blood spattering the floor. Enzo grabbed for his own weapon, but the door guard was faster, slamming him against the wall, weapon pressed to his spine. Lily woke screaming. Mira held her tight, turning her face away from the violence, whispering that it was okay, it was over, they were safe. The guard who'd fired, older, with gray hair and steady hands, kicked the syringe away and zip-tied Rocco's wrists behind his back. Blood dripped steadily on the expensive carpet. "Clear the room," he commanded. "Get the boy and the civilians out."
now.
Everything moved fast after that. Alexei was rushed to another room, the panic room, Mira learned later, with reinforced walls and independent life support. Lily was crying, but unhurt. Myra's ears rang from the gunshot. Rocco and Enzo were forced to their knees in the hallway, surrounded by armed guards. More men appeared, Victor's loyalists, weapons drawn, faces grim. Dominic arrived at a run, phone to his ear. Victor's on his way back. 10 minutes out, he looked at the two restrained men with cold fury. You stupid, stupid bastards. You had everything. Respect. Position.
Trust.
And you threw it away. We were trying to save the family, Enzo spat. Victor's weakness was going to destroy us. The old ways are dead. He couldn't see it. So you tried to murder his son? Dominic's voice could have frozen fire. You poisoned a 16-year-old boy to prove a point about modernization. We tried to save the organization from his sentimentality. Rocco shouted, despite the pain from his ruined hand. This homeless woman, this nobody, he invokes a sacred oath for her? Makes us all vulnerable for a street rat and her daughter? That's not leadership, that's suicide. The words hit Mira like physical blows. Street rat. Nobody. All the things she'd feared people thought about her, spoken aloud by a man bleeding on marble floors. You're right, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I am nobody. Just a homeless woman who knew CPR. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't want your world or your codes or your sacred oaths. She shifted Lily in her arms, met Rocco's eyes. But I saved a life anyway. And you? You tried to take one. So tell me, who's really worthless here? Rocco looked away. The front door crashed open. Victor appeared, Dominic's backup team behind him. He took in the scene, the blood, the restrained men, his son being evacuated to safety, and his face became something inhuman. He walked slowly to Rocco and Enzo, knelt between them. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. You tried to kill my son. Victor, please, Enzo started. You tried to kill my son, Victor repeated louder. You poisoned him. And when that failed, you came here, to my home, where he should be safest, and tried again. We were trying to save you, Rocco said desperately. Save the family from your weakness. Victor's fist caught him in the jaw, a crack like breaking wood. Rocco's head snapped back. Blood sprayed from his mouth. My weakness. Victor's voice shook with rage. My weakness is that I loved you, trusted you, treated you like brothers. He stood. That weakness ends tonight. What are you going to do? Enzo asked, fear finally cracking through his composure. Victor looked at him with eyes that held no mercy, no recognition, nothing human. What you forced me to do, he said. What betrayal demands. What the old ways you hate so much require. He turned to Dominic. Take them to the waterfront. The abandoned warehouse. You know the 1-inch. Dominic nodded grimly. The guards hauled Rocco and Enzo to their feet. Victor, please. Rocco was crying now, pain and terror mixing. We grew up together. Your father. My father would have killed you the moment you touched his grandson, Victor said flatly. I'm being merciful by waiting until we're somewhere private. They were dragged away, their pleas echoing through marble halls until doors closed and silence returned. Victor stood alone in the blood-stained corridor, and for a moment he looked lost. Then he saw Mira and Lily, still holding each other, and something in his expression cracked. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You shouldn't have seen that. Either of you. You saved us, Mira replied. That's what I'll remember. Victor nodded slowly, then walked away to check on his son. And Mira held Lily close, whispering comfort, knowing that tomorrow the newspapers might report 2 bodies found by the waterfront. Knowing that justice in Victor's world looked nothing like justice in hers. But knowing, too, that they were alive. And sometimes survival was its own kind of grace. The abandoned warehouse smelled of salt water and old death. Mira hadn't wanted to come, but Victor had insisted. You need to see this, he'd said quietly. You need to understand what your testimony means. What happens when we catch the truth. So she'd left Lily with Rosa, who promised hot chocolate and cartoons and safety, and followed Victor and Dominic into the industrial wasteland where the city's darkness had physical form. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, broken windows like missing teeth, rusted metal groaning in the wind. Inside, Emergency lights powered by a generator cast everything in harsh shadows. Rocco and Enzo were chained to support beams, separated by 20 feet of empty space. Rocco's hand was bandaged, blood seeping through. Both men had lost their composure entirely, faces pale, bodies shaking. 6 of Victor's men stood guard. These weren't the mansion's security. These were enforcers, the ones who did the work that stained souls permanently. "Miss Chun," Victor said formally, "tell them what you heard." The conversation outside the storage room. Every word. Myra's throat was dry, but she repeated it all. The medication switch. The timing. The plan to kill Alexei and blame Victor's incompetence. Every damning word. When she finished, Enzo laughed, a broken, desperate sound. "You're taking the word of a homeless woman over men who've served your family for 30 years. "I'm taking the word of someone who has no reason to lie," Victor replied. "Someone who gains nothing from your death and everything from your survival." He stepped closer to Enzo. "You, however, had everything to gain.
Power.
Position. Control of the organization. We wanted to save it." Enzo shouted. "Your father built an empire using fear and strength. You're destroying it with mercy and sentiment." "My father," Victor interrupted, his voice like ice, "would have gutted you the moment you looked at his grandson wrong. Don't invoke his name to justify your betrayal." "It wasn't just us," Rocco said suddenly. "The council, they approved it. 3 members knew. They wanted you gone, Victor. You're too old-fashioned, too rigid. The organization is dying because you won't adapt." "Names," Dominic demanded, stepping forward. "Give us names." Rocco hesitated, then spilled everything. 3 council members, Castellano, Moretti, and De Luca. Old families. Powerful positions. They'd supplied the tetrodotoxin, provided intelligence on Victor's routines, promised Rocco and Enzo leadership positions after the coup. Victor listened, without expression. When Rocco finished, the silence stretched like a blade. "You sold my son's life for a promotion," Victor said finally. "For power you didn't earn. For positions you weren't worthy of. We earned everything." Enzo screamed. "We've bled for this family. We've killed for you. You've betrayed everything that matters." Victor turned to Dominic. "Contact the other council members. The honest ones. Tell them about Castellano, Moretti, and De Luca. Tell them we have proof. Tell them the traitors will be dealt with according to the old laws." "Victor, wait." Mira found her voice. "You're going to kill them? All of them?" "Yes." The simple honesty of it was somehow more chilling than a threat would have been. "There has to be another way," Mira said. "Prison. Exile. Something that isn't murder." Victor looked at her. "That's what you're thinking. That I'm about to commit murder. Aren't you?"
No.
"I'm about to execute traitors according to the laws of my world. Laws older than this country. Laws that everyone, including them, agreed to live by." He gestured to Rocco and Enzo. "They knew the price of betrayal. They chose it anyway. They're still human beings. They tried to kill my son. Twice." Victor's voice cracked slightly. "They poisoned a 16-year-old boy. Watched him collapse. Came to my home, where he should be safest, and tried to inject him with toxins that would stop his heart." He stepped closer to Mira. "If Alexei had died, if you hadn't been there that first time, if the guards hadn't stopped them tonight, my son would be dead.
Gone.
Forever. Because these men wanted power." Tears burned Myra's eyes. "I know. I understand. But killing them is the only language that prevents this from happening again." Victor's expression softened slightly. "I brought you here not to approve, but to understand. You saved a life in my world. Now you need to see what happens to those who try to take lives in my world. You need to understand the complete picture." Dominic approached quietly.
Victor.
"The other council members are convening. They want evidence. Recordings of the confessions. Proof before they move against Castellano and the others." "Then record it." Victor pulled out his phone. "Rocco. Enzo. Repeat everything. The council's involvement. The poison source. The planned coup. All of it. At first they refused. But fear worked where loyalty hadn't. Within 10 minutes, Victor had video confessions detailing everything: the conspiracy, the council members involved, the betrayal's full scope. Send it, Victor ordered. Encrypt it. To the 5 loyal members. Let them handle Castellano and his allies. Dominic worked his phone. Within seconds, the evidence was transmitted.
Done.
They'll move by morning. Quietly. The council's reputation stays intact, but the traitors disappear.
Victor nodded.
Then he turned to his enforcers. Leave us. All of you. Miss Chun, you too. Victor, Dominic started. I said leave. Mira followed the others outside, into the cold night air. The waterfront stretched endlessly, dark water reflecting broken lights. Behind them, in the warehouse, Victor D'Amato was alone with the men who'd betrayed him. What's going to happen? Mira asked Dominic. Justice. In the only form this world understands. How can you just? Mira struggled for words. How can you be okay with this? Dominic looked at her with ancient eyes. Because I've seen what happens when betrayal goes unpunished. It spreads, multiplies, destroys everything. Victor's mercy toward you is real. It's also dangerous. It makes him vulnerable. So when he shows strength elsewhere, when he enforces the old laws, he reminds everyone why they follow him. By killing people. By maintaining order. By ensuring that the next person who thinks about poisoning a 16-year-old boy remembers what happened to the last ones who tried. A single gunshot echoed from inside the warehouse. Then another. Mira flinched. Dominic didn't. Victor emerged 5 minutes later, alone, his face carved from stone. He looked at Mira, and for a moment something human flickered in his eyes. I'm sorry you witnessed this, he said quietly. I'm sorry your act of kindness led you here. But this is my world. This is what it takes to keep people like you and Alexei safe. At what cost? Mira whispered. Everything. Victor walked past her toward the waiting vehicles. Always everything. The drive back to the mansion was silent. Mira stared out the window, watching the city pass. Normal people living normal lives, unaware of the violence that happened in their shadows. When they arrived, she went straight to Lily. Found her sleeping in Rose's arms, chocolate still on her lips, safe and innocent and untouched by the night's darkness. It's done? Rosa asked quietly. Mira nodded.
Good.
Then maybe now you can all sleep. But Mira knew she wouldn't sleep. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again without seeing those warehouse shadows and hearing those gunshots and understanding exactly what Victor had done to protect them. She'd saved a life on a sidewalk. And in return, 2 men had died in a warehouse. The math didn't balance. Wouldn't ever balance. But Lily was breathing softly, warm and safe, and Victor's son was alive in a room down the hall. Sometimes, Mira realized, you didn't get clean hands and a clear conscience. Sometimes you just got survival. And you learned to live with what that cost. 3 weeks passed before the world felt stable again. The council had moved quietly against Castellano, Moretti, and De Luca. But Mira couldn't forget the warehouse. Couldn't unhear those gunshots. She woke at night, breath catching, seeing Rocco's desperate eyes and Enzo's final understanding that there was no escape. Alexei stood beside him, looking healthier than Mira had seen him, the teenage confidence returning. Miss Chun, Victor began.
Mira.
Please sit. She did, warily. Business registration papers for Chun Community Health Services, bank statements showing a funded account, not excessive, but stable. Scholarship papers with Lily's name already filled in. I can't accept this, Mira whispered. You can't refuse it, Victor replied. The life debt must be repaid. My honor demands it. The old laws require it, he leaned forward. But Mira, understand, this isn't charity. This is me giving you what you actually need, not what I think you should want. The building is zoned for medical services, Alexei added excitedly. Small clinic, community-focused. Dad pulled strings for the licensing. Your nursing assistant certification still counts. You just need to complete a short renewal course. His enthusiasm was genuine. You can actually help people. Use your skills. Make a real difference. And the money? Mira asked. Enough to operate for 2 years without profit, Victor said. After that, you're on your own.
No ties to my family. No obligations.
No debt, he paused. And no danger. My enemies know attempting to harm you would violate the terms of debt repayment. You'll be protected by the same laws that bound me to protect you. Myra's hands shook as she held the papers. A clinic. Real work. A future that didn't involve sleeping in a van or begging for day labor. The scholarship for Lily is through a legitimate foundation. No one will connect it to me. The building's ownership is in your name only. Why? Myra's voice cracked. Why give me everything I need and ask for nothing? Victor turned to face her. Because you gave me everything I needed and asked for nothing. You saved Alexei without knowing who he was, without expecting reward, without calculating advantage. You acted purely. And that, his voice roughened. That's so rare in my world that I don't know how else to honor it except by letting you go. I wanted to say thank you, Alexei said quietly. Properly. Not just for the CPR, but for everything after. For catching the conspiracy. For being brave when everything was terrifying. He pulled something from his pocket, a small photograph of him and his mother. This is the only picture I have of her. I want you to keep it, to remember that what you did mattered, that you saved more than just a life. You saved a family. Tears spilled down Myra's cheeks. She took the photograph with trembling hands. A beautiful woman with Alexei's eyes smiled back at her, holding a tiny dark-haired boy. She would have liked you, Victor said softly. She always believed people were fundamentally good. I've spent 20 years proving her wrong. Then you appeared, and for one moment, I wondered if she'd been right all along. Mira wiped her eyes. When can we leave?
Today. Now.
Whenever you're ready, Victor returned to his desk and pulled out one more item, a simple business card. This has a number. Private line. If you're ever in danger, real danger, not from my world but from anything you call it. I may not answer, but someone will come. That's not debt. That's just consideration. Friendship. Mira suggested. I don't have friends. I have family and enemies. You're neither, Victor almost smiled. Maybe you're proof that there's a third category. Rosa appeared at the door with Lily, who ran to Mira immediately. Mommy, Rosa says we're leaving. Is it true? Where are we going? Somewhere new, baby. Somewhere good. Will Rosa visit? Rosa laughed, her eyes wet. Of course, little one. Someone needs to make sure your mother feeds you properly. The goodbyes were surprisingly hard. Dominic shook Myra's hand with unexpected gentleness. You're braver than most soldiers I've known, he said. Take care of yourself. The guard she'd come to recognize nodded respectfully. The household staff pressed small gifts into her hands, cookies, a scarf, a children's book for Lily. These people who'd been strangers 3 weeks ago had become something else. Not quite family, but not strangers anymore either. Victor walked them to the car personally. Not an SUV this time, but a normal sedan, unmarked and unremarkable. Their few possessions fit easily in the trunk. The van they'd lived in was gone, sold or disposed of. That chapter was closed. The clinic opens in 2 weeks, Victor said. Everything's ready. Keys are in the packet. There's a small apartment above it, 2 bedrooms, furnished, utilities included for the first year. Victor, Mira struggled for words. I don't know how to thank you. Then don't. Just live. Build something good. Prove that kindness isn't weakness, he looked at Lily. And raise her to be as brave as her mother. Alexei appeared at the door, jogging down the steps. He thrust something at Lily, a stuffed animal, expensive and new. This is Mr. Buttons. He's very good at keeping nightmares away. Lily clutched it immediately. Thank you, Alexei. Maybe you can visit sometime, Alexei said hopefully. When things are safer. When it's okay. Maybe, Mira agreed, though she knew it was unlikely. The driver, one of Dominic's men, held the door. Mira and Lily climbed in. Through the window, Mira watched Victor standing on his mansion steps, one hand raised in farewell. Alexei beside him, waving enthusiastically at Lily. The car pulled away, down the long driveway, through the gates that opened automatically, onto normal streets where normal people lived normal lives. "Mommy?" Lily asked. Was that a good man or a bad man? Mira thought about warehouse gunshots and muddy footprints and a teenager's life saved twice, about violence and protection, and the impossible mathematics of debt and honor. Both, she said finally. He was both. Can people be both? Most people are, baby. Most people are both. The city passed outside, familiar and strange at once. Somewhere ahead was a clinic with her name on it. A chance to help people the way she'd helped Alexei. A life built from kindness instead of survival. Behind them, the D'Amato mansion disappeared into the distance. The debt was paid. They were finally free. 6 months later, the clinic was thriving. Chun Community Health Services occupied a corner building in a neighborhood that was working class but hopeful, the kind of place where people still looked out for each other. The sign above the door was simple, professional, real. Mira arrived each morning at 7, unlocking the door while Lily got ready for school upstairs. The apartment was small but theirs, truly theirs, with a lease in Myra's name and utilities she paid from her own account. The walls held Lily's artwork. The refrigerator actually had food in it. Normal things. Precious things. The clinic served the forgotten. Immigrants without insurance, elderly folks on fixed incomes, families who fell through the system's cracks the way Mira once had. She charged what people could afford, sometimes nothing at all. The funded account Victor had established kept them afloat while word spread and the practice grew. She'd completed her renewal certification in record time. Hired a part-time receptionist named Maria, a grandmother with organizational skills and a warm smile. Established relationships with local doctors who provided oversight and referrals. Built something real from the ashes of her old life. "Dr. Chun?" Maria called from the front desk. They'd given up correcting people who assumed doctor, though Mira was technically still just a nursing assistant. "Your 9 o'clock is here." Mira finished washing her hands and checked the schedule. Diabetes management for Mr. Kowalski. Blood pressure check for Mrs. Tran. Wound care for Jorge, the construction worker, who couldn't afford the ER. Her days were full of small victories and practical care. It was exactly what she'd wanted. At lunch, she walked Lily to school, a good public school 3 blocks away, where her daughter was making friends and learning to read chapter books. The scholarship Victor had arranged covered enrichment programs, field trips, things Mira never could have afforded. "Mom, can I have a birthday party this year?" Lily asked, swinging her backpack. "A real one, with cake and friends?" "Of course, baby." "At our apartment? With decorations?" "Wherever you want." Lily beamed. She turned 7 last month, but the party had been postponed while Mira dealt with licensing paperwork. Now, finally, they had space to celebrate. Space to breathe. After dropping Lily at school, Mira returned to the clinic. A black sedan was parked across the street. Expensive, tinted windows conspicuously out of place in this neighborhood. Her heart stuttered. But the car didn't move. No one emerged. It simply sat there, engine off, waiting. Mira knew that car. Or cars like it. She unlocked the clinic, helped Maria prepare for afternoon appointments, and tried to ignore the sedan's presence. At 3 o'clock, it was still there. At 4, when she locked up to collect Lily from school, it remained. She walked to the school with the sedan following at a discreet distance. It waited while she picked up Lily. Followed them back to the clinic. Parked again across the street. "Mommy, that car was here this morning," Lily observed. "Are they lost?" "Maybe, baby. Go upstairs and start your homework. I'll be right there." Mira waited until Lily was safely inside, then crossed the street. The sedan's rear window rolled down as she approached. Dominic sat in the back seat, older and grayer than she remembered, but unmistakably the same. "Miss Chun," he said politely. Forgive the intrusion. Is something wrong? Is Alexei? Everyone's fine. I'm here as a courtesy. May I? He gestured to the clinic. Just a brief conversation. They sat in the clinic's small waiting room after Mira locked the door and turned off the lights. Dominic looked around at the second-hand chairs, the community health posters, the sign-in sheet covered with names and copays ranging from $5 to $0. You've built something good here, he said. Victor wanted you to know he's aware. And proud. Why doesn't he tell me himself? Because boundaries matter. Because the debt is paid and contact should be minimal, Dominic pulled a folder from his coat. But circumstances have changed. 3 months ago, someone began asking questions about you. Following you. Taking photographs. Ice formed in Myra's chest. Who? A journalist. Investigative reporter for the Tribune. She's piecing together what happened at Maple Street. The poisoning. The cleanup. Your involvement. Dominic opened the folder, showing surveillance photos of Mira at the clinic, walking with Lily, grocery shopping. She doesn't have the full story yet, but she's getting close. What does she want? The truth. Or her version of it. Homeless woman saves Mafia heir, disappears into protection, human interest with criminal undertones. She thinks it's her Pulitzer. Myra's hands clenched. What do I do? Nothing. Victor's people have been managing it. Subtle pressure. Legal threats. Reminders about source protection and libel laws. Dominic's expression softened. But she's persistent. Eventually she'll publish something. When she does, your past becomes public. People will know about Victor, about Alexei, about everything. Will we be in danger?
No.
Victor's made it clear. You're untouchable. But your privacy will be gone. This quiet life you've built? It becomes complicated. Mira looked around her clinic, at the space she'd created, the new life she'd fought for. Can you stop her? Probably. But there's a cost. Dominic paused. Victor could make this disappear completely.
Kill the story.
Convince the journalist to pursue other interests. But it would require your permission to intervene more directly. The euphemism hung in the air. Intervene. Like warehouse interventions.
Like permanent solution.
No, Mira said immediately. I don't want anyone hurt because of me. Not again. Then we manage the damage. Prepare for publicity. Victor will ensure the story focuses on the rescue, not the aftermath. Paint you as a hero, Alexei as a lucky survivor, everything else as family business. And Lily? Protected. Always. That's non-negotiable. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Dominic stood, leaving the folder on the chair. Victor also wanted me to give you this. He placed a small envelope on the reception desk. Open it when you're ready. After he left, Mira locked the door and sat alone in the dimming light. The envelope was heavy, expensive paper. Inside was a single photograph, recent, taken from a distance but clear. It showed Alexei at what looked like a graduation ceremony. He wore a suit and held a diploma, grinning at the camera. He looked healthy, happy,
Alive.
On the back, in Victor's precise handwriting, he starts college in the fall. Pre-med, says he wants to save lives the way someone once saved his. Thank you. Always.
Vet years blurred Mira's vision.
She tucked the photo carefully into her wallet, next to the one Alexei had given her of his mother. Upstairs, Lily called out. Mom.
I'm hungry.
Coming, baby. Mira climbed the stairs to their apartment, their home, where dinner needed cooking and homework needed checking and bedtime stories waited. The black sedan was gone when she glanced out the window. But she knew, somehow, that it or one like it would always be nearby. Not a threat. Not imprisonment. Just Victor keeping his final promise. Watching from a distance. Ensuring the woman who saved his son could live freely, even if that freedom needed occasional, invisible protection. The next morning, Mira opened the clinic at 7 as usual. Mrs. Tran arrived at 8. Mr. Kowalski at 9. The day filled with patience and paperwork and the satisfying exhaustion of useful work. At noon, a teenager walked in, nervous, sporting a black eye. asking if she could help with a broken wrist he couldn't afford to get treated. Mira didn't hesitate. "Sit down. Let me see." As she examined the injury, explaining what she was doing and why, the boy relaxed. "You're really good at this," he said. "I've had practice." "Why do you do it?" "Help people like us, I mean. People who can't pay." Mira thought about a sidewalk and a collapsing teenager and a choice she'd made without thinking. About warehouse gunshots and mansion prisons and debts that transformed into unexpected freedom. "Because someone has to," she said simply. "And because helping people, really helping them, that's the only thing that makes sense in a world that usually doesn't." She splinted his wrist, gave him ice for the black eye, and sent him home with instructions and pain medication samples. He thanked her 3 times before leaving. Through the window, Mira watched him walk away into a city full of people who needed help they couldn't afford. People who fell through cracks and lived in margins and did their best to survive. People like she used to be. But not anymore. The clinic's phone rang. Maria answered cheerfully. "Chun Community Health Services, how can we help you?" Mira smiled. The debt was paid. The danger had passed. The new life was real. And somewhere across the city, in a mansion she'd never visit again, Victor D'Amato looked at photographs of his son's graduation and remembered the homeless woman who'd given them both a second chance. The life she'd saved had saved her in return. Not with money or power or violence, but with a simple gift of possibility. And that, Mira thought as she prepared for her next patient, was the rarest treasure of all.